Nice.
Rangers Easy OK says, nice to see the club actually hire a sporting director who's been a sporting director at a good level in his career. Everton fans today, they are mostly positive about Thelwell's time at the club. Hopefully there is background work on what type of coach they want to appoint with the takeover imminent. Also need to get moving now very fast. This one from Stephen, he says, does Thelwell know the size of the job? He needs to fix a club that is broken from top to bottom. There's a lot of people, I mentioned there, Keith, to Andy, that I felt a lot of fans were surprised. I mean, a lot of fans have written in saying things like this. Alex says, why would this board be allowed to sign up people if there is a takeover happening? Paul says, isn't this the type of appointment a new owner would want to make? Are you kind of surprised that, with a takeover, in the offing, that it's not the new guys that have appointed them?
No, but I don't know the ins and outs. But my best guess would be that no long-term future planning decisions will be being taken without the consent and knowledge of the people who are about to take the thing over. That just makes sense. There is this link with Steinson from the 49ers that might have a personal sort of relationship here. I'd be flabbergasted if these things were getting done and contracts were getting dished out without any knowledge or conversations with the people who intend to take the thing over. That doesn't make any sense to me. What I would say is that I've been banging on for weeks now about Rangers are so far behind the 8 ball for next season that they actually really need to get their finger out. So if this is step one in getting the finger out, then I can't say one thing and then criticise them for doing it. If they feel that everything that they're about to do requires that man in that position, then that would make sense rather than, going out there and, mounting some massive recruitment campaign with no strategy and no leadership to it. So in terms of, are they in a position where they thought they might be more advanced with a takeover? Maybe so, maybe not. But do they feel and have they identified that if they wait much longer, they've not really got a snowball in hell's chance of getting themselves ready to be competitive for the new season? Therefore, you have to start making changes. Now, I think Kevin Thelwell he's still got a job to all intents and purposes at Everton until his contract runs out. So can he have a real hands-on approach? Well, he'll not be sitting in the office calling the shots. But you know the way these things work. There are ways and means of, if he's just counting down the hours until he checks out at Goodison, he can have an eye on the kind of situation up the road, what needs done, the conversations that need to take place, compiling lists, etc., etc. So, in terms of everything that I've been saying that Rangers have been guilty of dragging their feet on while this process has continued, this is an indication that the guys that are involved realise, well, actually, we can't afford to wait any longer. They need to get the ball rolling. And I can only reiterate, although Patrick Stewart was tasked with heading this one up, I can only reiterate that I don't think he would have done that autonomously without checking in, running it past the guys on the other side of the pond, who are obviously keeping a very close eye on things. So, yeah, that would seem to make more sense to me. It wouldn't make any sense at all if Andrew Kavanagh was to come in the door and say, "Well, I don't want this guy." Yeah. So that's the first thing that needs to get done. He needs to get fired, and a payoff check needs to get signed. So on no basis does that sound like a plausible situation. You can only imagine, and this is Rangers, so never get too far ahead of yourself.
I can't rule it now.
Yeah, but you can only imagine in this instance that there's a coordination about everything that's going on.
What about Sean Dyche then, Keith? Because look, on the face of it, I agree with Andy. He doesn't scream Rangers manager to me. But if he's been working with Kevin Thelwell for several years, and I do think he is a good manager.
My Liverpool man tells me that Kevin Thelwell wasn't responsible for that appointment. It was Mashiri, the owner.
Okay.
And I get the impression that Kevin Thelwell was given a pass on that one by the Everton fans who just didn't take to Dyche. I mean, maybe they did it first when he managed to keep them up in really testing circumstances. But you could tell that they were growing really fed up with Dyche. And I don't think they blame Thelwell for that appointment. They blame Mashiri.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that might be right or wrong. Mashiri probably cops the blame for most of the things down there, but that does seem to be the case, that this was an appointment that he wanted. So if what you're asking me is because Sean Dyche was working at Everton when Thelwell was part of the management setup, does that make him a potential candidate for the Rangers job? I would say to you, if I thought that Thelwell was the guy who actually headhunted Dyche for the position, there'd be a lot bigger chance of that, because you're talking about a guy with personal relationships. And by the way, as Scott Burns' story points out for the head of the academy, sorry, what was his name?
Gareth Prosser, I think.
Prosser, you're right, Gareth Prosser. Thelwell has a relationship with him going back a couple of clubs as well, I think. Mm-hmm. So there's an indication. There's a guy that he knows, that he's trusted, that he's worked with, that has followed him from club to club a little bit, and he wants to make that appointment. I'm not sure that Dyche is in the same category, because I don't think, from the information that we're hearing, is that he was the guy that Thelwell would have automatically picked for the Everton job, never mind the Rangers job.
Do you think there would be a kind of meltdown if Dyche got the job?
Listen, do you know what? See, unless Rangers pull off, Jurgen Klopp as the new manager, under that circumstance, there's no backlash, 0% back. Well, there probably still will be somebody that says, he was in his best ever. He's done now.
He's not a Rangers man.
Aye.